All right, welcome, everybody. I want to welcome you to another episode of Diary of a Not So Mad Black Woman. We celebrate here the stories and experiences of African American women in the corporate world, nonprofit and for profit organizations. I'm your host, Dawn Sanders, and today we have a remarkable guest joining us. She's an expert in business development and a corporate trainer with over 15 years of experience. She's passionate about helping individuals succeed in their careers and businesses by bringing real world expertise to the classroom and into our corporate environments. Her training is all about transformation and actionable results, and she's known for looking out for your best interests every step of the way. Get ready to be inspired by her journey and her insights. And I just want to welcome to our podcast, Anissa Anne Alston.
How you doing, everybody? How you doing? Thank you, Pastor Don, for having me on your wonderful platform. Definitely a pleasure to be here and everything. My name is Anne Alston. My first name is actually pronounced Anissa, but I go by Anne. So I like to be very comfortable with stuff. So call me Anne, and it's definitely a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. And can you tell us a little bit about your personal story and your professional journey that led you into becoming part of the government corporate trainer and small business developer? Something going on with this tongue tonight. Lord help me.
Oh, it's all right. It's really a funny story because I didn't even start out this way, and it's really weird because I think a lot of people always have this story where they start out one way and they end up totally something else. And that was pretty much me. I could tell you that at a very young age, I was not even thinking about business at all. I am a singer. I'm a performer. I like to sing and was in school performing. That's the gift that God gave me, is to sing. Those folks who know me know that is really where my passion is. That's where my talent is. It's just being able to use words in a universal way to empower people through song, music, rhythm, all that stuff. And when I was younger, I was introduced to the world of business through the Washington School of Secretaries. So if you remember, like I remember growing up in DC, WSS commercials, I went to that school, and I went there to learn to be a executive assistant, because back then, if you were executive assistant or executive secretary, you were making a lot of money back then, which today is almost poverty type of wages. But back then it was a lot, it was a lot of money for a woman to be able to make that much money. And we're talking 35,000 up to 37,000. That was big bucks back then, back in 1980, 79, 80 time frame. And I went to that school, graduated from there, and I was literally just turning 21 around that time because I just came out of high school and went there. Tried to get a job, tried to use whatever skills they taught me to get a job. And what I realized is that what I learned there wasn't going to cut it. It just wasn't enough. And just so happened, they introduced me to the world of computers, the Wang, that was back in when Atari was, Nintendo, and they had the first Mac machine, the first, G version of the Mac machine. This is where I was introduced to technology way back in, I think it was like 1987, that tells you how old I am, right? And so as time went on, I learned technology along the way. And because I was integrated with technology, learning it, I got introduced to different organizations, federal government, DC government, law firms, transportation, you name it, healthcare. I worked for so many different organizations. And each time that I kind of touched on those organizations, I learned a little bit more about operation of the business. And I started to kind of do stuff on my own. I started going out fixing computers. I was doing system administration, desktop support during that time. And they were like, "Oh, you run a business," and I'm thinking, "No, I'm just trying to make some money to feed my family, take care of my family." Never really thought about the fact that I was actually running a small business in addition to going to a business. And that's where I started getting introduced to home-based businesses, and that really was the birth of it all. In the early 90s was when I just kept running into people who were working from home, who were running businesses. They called it a side gig, but they were actually making lucrative money. And I think from that point on is where I piqued my interest on what is a small business really. Is it really a side gig? Is it really something that you can make your own and still have a full-time job working for someone else and still be considered, a business owner? And the stigma around that time was that you had to quit your full-time job just to own a business or be considered a business owner. And especially for women, which was already difficult enough for me, being in the IT field, being the only female in the whole entire office in IT, being the only Black female on top of that, and in a male dominated area. And I'm looking at how can I take the skills and knowledge between administrative and technical and turn it into something that can benefit me, right? So it was very difficult. And that's really how I kind of got introduced to that era back then. And the rest was sort of a little bit of history, which is a lot of history, during that time. But that's how I sort of got into it.
No, and that is fascinating because when you talk about your journey is very similar, as we just had a quick little chat right before. The journey for me came through administration, right? And going from there, evolving into business analysis and project and program management in the IT field. It is, as you mentioned, it's a challenge to navigate your way through, especially when you find that you are the, first of all, like you said, only woman. And on top of that, the only Black woman. With that being said, how were you able to, especially early in your career, how were you able to kind of survive those situations or that type of environment where it was a struggle for us, especially early in the 90s and early
Oh my
2000s?
goodness.
So,
I could tell you right now, Pastor Don, I had so many band-aids and shea butter. Let me tell you, don't let this light skin fool you. There's a lot of scars under here. I can tell you that in addition to just my name alone, Anissa is very questionable because back then there weren't many Anissas out there, less than a few hundred, probably less than that. My sister, her name is just as equally as different as mine. And we were one of the few people that was even named that anywhere in the world. And because of that by itself, was always a challenge. They didn't, when they see Anissa, they don't know where I'm from. Even if they see me in person, they have no idea where I'm from. I'm not particularly dark skinned and I'm not particularly white either, or some other yellow pigmented color or something. They don't know. They just know that my name is different. And then being Black, um, the second strike, the way that people looked at you and considered you in the society at that time, you really had to humble yourself and say, okay, racism is everywhere. Okay, but what you do with racism is, affects what happens to you at that moment. And I really tried my best to stay neutral and to really accept people for who they are, regardless of what race they are. Me personally, I'm colorblind. I don't really care if you're white, Black, or Latino. It doesn't even matter to me because I feel like everybody is equal. The blood is still the same. I've always looked at people, even when I was little girl, I've never looked at people different simply because their skin color was different or their name was different. And I also never really got offended when people said certain things about me or my color or the way I look or my hair. That was the other thing because I have diverse hair, whether it be my hair or a style I'm wearing, I had all of those things. And then lastly, being a woman in IT was also very difficult because um, women in general, regardless of what race you were in, was just not welcome in the IT world at all. It was a male dominated thing. It was something that women are not supposed to do or be part of, the men's club. But at the end of the day, I think what became apparent is that what I recognized is that there was a shift in the economy. There was a shift in mindset in how women were seeing themselves. There was a shift in how men were treating women when it came to commodity like real estate and property and salary and everything. And women were feeling like, hey, I deserve some of this too. I am a human being. I deserve to have desires and want to buy stuff and have my own stuff. And they, in the time that I grew up, they didn't have anything. They were pretty much like, I'm just going to rely on my husband or my boyfriend. And they put everything in the woman's name, but the women didn't own anything. Right. And I remember those days very, very vivid in my mind that I did not want to be someone who owned, but never really owned, if you know what I mean. So having those three things was very difficult. And then you trying to navigate other people's expectations, their views of you, whether they include you or not. That was very difficult to try to navigate. And the best thing that I can say, if I had to give any advice, is really understand the human behavior. Um, a lot of people don't understand human behavior from a 10,000-foot level. And when I say that is that we look at human behavior and we instantly judge on the very first thing that happens, but we're not looking outside of that and, or the reason, or maybe they're feeling scared or insecure or something like that. We're instantly getting offended. So to answer the other part of your question is that I dealt with a lot of racism, through my career, whether being woman, being black, being whatever. And yeah, I was trying not so to be angry, but sometimes you just can't help it. Sometimes you just have to go home and you feel those feelings and then you pat yourself up and you go back out there and you show them that you are much more than just being a woman or just being black or just having a funny name. For me, the key was communication, opening up that line of communication. The second part was building relationships of trust, not just relationship, but that trust that they can talk to me, that they can work with me. And then I had some people who just refuse flat out to just want to work with me, and that's totally fine. But you still have to navigate around those people, which makes it difficult. And the third thing I would say is I had to learn how to create my own opportunities, even within all of that, going on. How do you mentally focus yourself to uh, see how you can build something for yourself through all this adversity? How do you keep doing that? And I put my energy in that because I can't control what other people do, but I can control what I do. And I focused on my skills, my knowledge, my education. And I said, well, it doesn't have to be this way. That's my philosophy. I can change my fate anytime just by changing my mindset. I'm not going to worry about this person over here feeling a certain way. I'm going to worry about what Anne does. And if Anne can focus on Anne, then I don't have time to focus on anybody else. And I just stick the Band-Aid on when it start healing, put the shea butter on, go back out there, put my makeup on and say, hey guys, I'm back. And they like, we just can't get rid of this girl.
Right. No, and I love how you basically with that growth mindset and understanding that people are people, and what it takes oftentimes is an empathetic heart, someone who can understand that while we may not understand or know everyone's come from state, there are some motivating factors that may cause behaviors to present in certain ways. IT, I oftentimes think about it as an industry in and of itself is information technology. And so you can infer from that information means knowledge. And so in the society that we live in today, there are some that think that knowledge is superior, or men are superior to retaining knowledge. So that's one area that they don't want us to tap into, right? So some of the experiences that I've had has been in, men pushing us out because it's like, nope, this is our lane. It's all about knowledge. It's all about information. This is our lane. And they don't want to let loose or release it, but to have an empathetic heart to understand that there's something maybe behind that and not necessarily taking it personally and still trying to build those relationships. That's something I'm working on. I've been praying. When I tell you over the last maybe 10, 15, I've been in IT for 20 years. So let's just say over the last 18 years. No, I'm just kidding. But I've been praying and asking God to pull me out of this, but he hasn't yet. So it's something I still have to figure out. But I understand what you mean about having those growing pains, right? In environments like that.
Yeah, you're definitely going to have some growing pains, but I think most of the time what we're looking at is superficial. You know, we're not looking like within ourselves and building our own skills and figuring out how many ways can we spend stuff. And that kind of ties back to why I went to business development and career development, because with business and career, they go together. When you are in that adverse situation and you feel stuck, right? And you feel like you just can't get out, how do you break the glass ceiling, without feeling like you're losing yourself in the process? And a lot of times we don't have what I call the twist. And some people who I've talked to in the past know what I'm talking about. You call that the twist in your skills. You need to have more than one skill in demand. You need to put yourself in a situation where you are highly needed, whether it be business or whether it be career. One of the things my husband and I say all the time, you need somebody to transport something. And that could be something in the transportation, anything, or you need somebody to fix something. There's always something to resolve. And you need somebody to pick up the trash, because when it comes down to the dirt, somebody got to clean it up, right? With those three, you can have so many industries just by those three topics alone. And if you look at the market to where people are placing their knowledge, you need to have more than one thing. Jobs are going so fast, careers, businesses are coming and going so fast. You need to be able to have multiple ways to move around, and only you can create that option for yourself. A lot of times in business development and even career development, they think the manager is the one that's going to help them do that. And that is absolutely false. The manager manages.
Right.
It's up to you to develop those skills and knowledge that you need to move forward. And so if you're relying on someone else to build that for you, you're going to be waiting a very, very, very long time,
Right.
So you got to break the ceiling with your own internal effort. And you can't get mad at someone else not doing a certain thing. That's what makes us so black man woman. Hey, this person didn't do this, and this person boss is not promoting me, or this boss didn't give me a raise, or this coworker is doing whatever. Okay, well, let's turn the questions around. What are you doing to advance yourself, to elevate yourself? What are you doing to invest in yourself? Are you taking part of your paycheck and taking a class? Are you putting money away to get yourself some options? What are you doing, instead of worrying about someone else? And I think a lot of that has been going on to make us mad, but we need not to be as mad and put that anger into energy of positivity for yourself.
Right. And I absolutely love what you said too. You have to have the audacity to take your career or your future in your own hands. You talked about being that person of multiple skills, that T-shaped employee. We were talking about that actually earlier today in the session I sat in. The organization I work for is they very much promote owning your career. They are career oriented. They want to employ their resources for the life cycle of their entire career. And they always push and promote, it is up to you to own your career. And if you're looking to advance, it's your responsibility to advance. And I had a question for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Kind of tapped into it a little bit when you were talking about, but I wanted to find out with your business development and corporate training, can you talk about, especially with the state of our United States, we're in a political season where I'm looking forward to some of these debates, because I'm telling you, the last 4 years have been kind of dry, and I almost like the drama. Unfortunately, I just like it for the comic relief. But with what's going on with our economy and with our world, can you tell me about how your business development and corporate training has impacted our community, the Black community, in terms of professional growth and career advancement?
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so as far as what's happening in the political, and I would say more than 4 years, I would say for the last 8 to 12 years, the small business community has really struggled a lot. And it has primarily struggled here in Maryland specifically because, and I hate to say this, but it's just from my view. So don't come for me, guys. Don't come for me. From what my view is that the reason why small businesses are struggling is because there's a lot of government entities and small state organizations that are getting funds and taking our skills and using us to help them come up with ideas to fund their program. Okay. And I say that loosely because it has happened to me on multiple occasions where my model of my business has been taken by someone in some state organization and they're giving away for free to other people who are not particularly ready to start a business. Okay. So I think for me, I focus on actual individuals who are ready, who actually have an idea, and all they need is help to build their business. And so my courses kind of help them along the way to build and gather that piece of information they need to get it going. I would say that my course, the small business course that I do, the 10-week one, is the original first 10-week course that has been published here in Maryland over the last 8 years. I'm the original creator of it. I'm the original creator of the term career transition. The workshops that I've done in the years to help people on both those fronts was really primarily due to small businesses not being able to get capital, small businesses not getting proper recognition even after they start a business because their mindset of working together just wasn't where it needed to be. Everybody was scared to work with each other, scared, oh, somebody's going to take my business idea, that type of thing happening, or they weren't given a good shot of getting exposure because of lack of capital, not understanding marketing, not understanding how to do sales, not even understanding how to even operate their business with employees. And so the course is primarily designed to take them from concept to operation and everything in between. And I have been so blessed to have been supported by 11 professionals who was on this journey with me, who worked with me in sales and insurance and taxes and everything to kind of help bring some of those perspectives to these people. And I have trained hundreds of folks in that aspect. And because of this political stuff that's happening, our businesses have suffered. Not just the small ones that stuck. Let's look at the big ones who shut their doors during COVID because they too were having struggles of their own financially, economically. It shouldn't have been that easy for people to be able to just shut their doors because of COVID. People didn't understand online marketing. They didn't understand how to shift from physical to virtual. And then the blow to the stomach. Now you take away the tax incentives. Okay. So now small business owners don't have tax incentives. We can't write off certain things. And if you happen to be married and happen to be going to college at the same time, when you got kids and you own a business, you can't do anything. And if you're a nonprofit, doors are going to shut instantly because now people cannot, get good tax write-offs. People don't want to donate because they feel like it doesn't count.
Mm-hmm.
And just the mindset of how people look at business in general. I can just spin up something on YouTube and I'm in business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it has been a very difficult 12 years. I do think on the flip side, on positive side, we have a lot of young people who are embracing the different way that we are starting businesses. They are leveraging these apps like wildfire. I mean, they are turning stuff into instant money making profit methodologies left and right, to the point where they are okay if they're never doing business in person. If they can flip a switch and thumb up and hit something and all of a sudden they're making money, they are cool. They're okay with it. I think people like myself and my generation is still trying to keep the tradition of a business going. And with the students that are coming in, I can tell you, Pastor Don, it is 99% women who are driving these small businesses, whether it's online or in person, and they all have the same ideology as 20, 30 years ago. They're still, say, hey, teach me the old way to do this business because what I'm doing right now on social media is not working. So it's really has impacted them in a positive way. And on top of that, their self-confidence, they get a chance to release and talk about what's bothering them, to overcome those challenges, to let go of fear and really look within themselves and say, you know what, I can do this, and I think between the courses and the classes and the mentoring and whatever else is really, I think I touched on so many people. It's really overwhelming for me sometimes because you don't realize the impact of what you do when you have an action like that, and I think my intention was to really pay it forward of whatever knowledge that I learned and not realizing that I literally changed someone's life for whatever the better. I mean, I'm just so blessed and thankful for that. And they tell me all the time, and it just motivates me to keep going,
Yeah, and yeah, I think knowledge is power, right? And experience oftentimes is the key that can connect you to the power that you need. And so I'm grateful that you take the time to pour into others. Your region is thriving. When I tell you, I have met some of the most phenomenal people. I'm born and raised Detroit, Michigan. So when I see a little Detroit and anywhere that I go, I enjoy it. But there are so many phenomenal people in your region and in your area. And what I've seen is a huge entrepreneurial spirit right there. And I agree with you too, that we are shifting. We had these shifts. I listened to, his name is Ray Dalio, and I probably pronounced his name wrong, but Dalio. But he is a financial strategist. And he's done some studies about just the overturn of power in different countries and empires and things like that. But anyway, one of the things that he talks about where it relates to just how the waves go. And every 20 years to 100 years, you'll see that cycling of, some empires will fall and then others will rise. But when you find yourself in the era that we're in now, it is a ripe time for entrepreneurship because we get so tired of not having things, right? That we just out of what is the saying? The mother of invention is necessity, So it's like, it's a ripe season. So again, I applaud what you're doing in the community for our people, and it is greatly needed.
It
All right,
sure
so,
is.
yes. So with over 15 years of training experience, can you share some key insights or strategies you've developed that have proven effective in helping individuals succeed in their careers and the workforce?
Oh, that's an excellent question, Pastor Don. I would say the very first thing is really just recognizing and accepting where you are at the time. A lot of times, we get caught up in, oh, I know I can do this and that and the other, but really, where are you really? Be honest with yourself at what skill level you have. I think that's the very first step, and then understanding where you need help, meaning be open minded to criticism, to advice, to someone who is trusted to give you the real information. I think over the years, as I talk to people and mentor folks from University of Maryland, University College, all the way to the company that I'm working with now, which is Housing Opportunity Commission of Montgomery County. Every one of them have super dreams. I mean, huge dreams for their career. They want so much, but a lot of times what I also hear is that they're not being realistic about the goals that they need to achieve and what they need to do. It's still what I said earlier, they're relying on Joe over here and Jill over there to do a specific thing, and they're not doing anything to really bring that in. So understanding where you are and accepting help. The other thing is really being intentional about your goals in terms of a career. What exactly do you feel like you're good at doing, and then pursue that and let that be your focus. People ask me all the time, and how was you able to go to this IT thing, deal with all these people, go to university and come out with 3 master's degrees? Intention, dedication, and commitment. You have to commit to yourself, not to my husband and say, hey, if he worked nice and I had to deal with the kids, I had to learn how to deal with the kids and study too. Mm-hmm. I didn't make excuses for myself. And that's another thing, if you're making excuses for yourself, you're going to hold yourself, but you are holding yourself back. Nobody, not the kids, not my husband, not anybody else. If I'm making excuses, then that means that I'm holding myself back. I'm going to procrastinate. I'm going to put stuff off, and I'm going to it might be valid reasons, yes. But if you're not accomplishing small little goals to get to the big goal, you don't have to go out there and try to get the whole big goal all at one time. Mm-hmm. Do little small stuff that's going to lead you to that. Have a book of checklists or a whiteboard. I have a whiteboard all the time, Pastor Don. I use it religiously for financial goals, personal goals. And when I wake up in the morning and I walk into this room, it smacks me in the face and say, oh, at this date, you have this goal to achieve. Don't you forget that's what you're supposed to do, Yeah. And it reminds me and keeps me motivated. And when I look at it, I can literally cross it off my list. Say, did I do that? Yeah, I did that. I check it off and I feel good about myself because I did it, not no one else, Right. And I think the other thing too is what I usually do is, whether you're looking for a job or not, always know where you are as far as demand's concerned. Go out there and see where you fall. If you lose your job today, right, where would you fall? Are you in demand? Do you need some skills? Do you need a refresher? Did you let your certification lapse? Do you need to get it back? Those type of things keep you on your toes, because God forbid, and I've had this happen to me many times. If you do not know where you fall in the market, you will not find a job very quickly. And I made it a practice that if I lose a job, I'm going to get me a job within a month's time. I'm not going to let a whole month go by and I'm not working. And Lord has been good to me that the last 7 jobs I've had where I had to switch, either due to layoff or the company closed or I left, I had a job within 3 weeks of applying because I made sure that my skills were in demand. That means looking at the full job description, understanding what are they asking that person to do, and can you actually honestly do the job? Those are things you do, and updating your resume too. The last thing I would say is make sure that whatever job you're on, get those mix of skills I talked about. That means talking to another person in another department, hey, can you show me how to do that? I'm really interested in how to learn how to do something. Use that knowledge and pad your resume with it, knowing that you are proficient, not just saying you did it one time, okay, or two times. You
Mhm.
know, get in there and really learn your craft, really learn it. And so you can pad your resume, and you never know. I mean, that opportunity that you're prepping yourself for is going to come to you, and you're going to be ready, because nobody wants to wait for you to be ready. You need to be ready when it's time.
I love how you talk about self accountability, being
Oh,
accountable, taking
yeah.
ownership, and making sure that you have the quality of substance of what is in demand. I think that's so important. A lot of times when I'm working with my clients as I'm life coaching, what we'll do is we'll try to understand what their core values are to help them to articulate in a tangible way who they are. And upon understanding who you are, then we'll build a life plan around that, right? That is ever evolving, but to
Nice.
help you to get on the right path. But one of the activities that I oftentimes do is we want to get to the end goal, but how do we accomplish that? Doing a real introspective look into where is your skill set? Where are the gaps? It's okay to not wake up. Someone said this earlier today. I'm actually in a new role in my organization, and I'm kind of outside of project management or program management that I've been doing for so long. And the lady said to me earlier today, she said, it's okay to not have been born with this knowledge, right? It's like, it's okay to not know, but you have to understand what you don't know and a path to increasing your knowledge and your understanding in certain areas. So I love that. I love, the self accountability is not the woe is me mentality and attitude. I was thinking about it. I wanted to get your thoughts on this because one of the things that I feel that I've had to do a lot of times in corporate America was to be creative in building opportunities for myself, right? Sometimes, as you stated earlier, it's hard to break into certain areas to hit that glass ceiling, right? You have to kind of make opportunities for yourself. But we're seeing a lot. I've seen it a lot in social media, on the news, about African American women who have met their breaking point, and it's almost about to bring me to tears. I've been emotional all day today. One, it is the anniversary of my mom's passing 2 years ago, so I'm thinking that's it. That's got to be it. But just thinking about the death of I can't remember her name. I know her, Dr. Bailey, at Lincoln University, where I don't know if you've heard about that, where she committed suicide. She was a high ranking, I cannot remember her position, but she had been dealing with some bullying in the workplace. And it caused her to end her life. And what I'm hearing is that I think she may have only been in her role maybe about 9 months. And then there's another instance, and I should be better with my notes. I'm gonna get better. Give me some time. But there is another instance where I believe she was with Harvard University. I want to say her last name is Dr. Gay or something like that, where she had been antagonized out of her position and gave her resignation. But what are your thoughts about just some of those dynamics, right, that women deal with, and ensuring our mental health and making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and we're doing what needs to be done, in addition to being accountable for where we are, but also really being serious about protecting ourselves when we have to go into these environments that are not so sensitive to our needs?
Well, Pastor Don, that touches me too, because I have been a victim of heavy bullying all throughout my childhood up until high school almost. you know, just constant bullying for whatever reason. I was just drawing all the bullies to me for some reason. Nothing that I particularly did, but just, being a girl who's overweight with glasses, living in a specific neighborhood, they just never liked it. And the same students back in the day, they actually follow you from school to school, from elementary to middle school, from middle school to high school. Um, I can tell you that the one instance that I sort of had one of those times when I worked at a law firm years ago, there was a woman who hired me specifically to take her place. We interviewed. She had no problem with me at the time. She hired me and everything was fine. But I would say soon after, maybe a few months after, that's when the harassment started. That's when the micromanaging started, the racism started, sabotage of my work, searching of my office, even though we sit right next to each other, going through my desk, even though I don't have any like documents, but just going through to, trying to make it seem like I'm doing stuff. And one day it got so bad that I literally just closed the door and just broke down in horrific tears. Okay. Because I left a really good organization thinking I was going to have a really good opportunity at this specific organization. And I felt like I jumped out of the frying pan into the fire. And I didn't know what to do. And actually, it was so bad mentally and physically that it actually triggered some unexpected health issues for myself, fibromyalgia, other physical health issues because of that. But thank God for my husband who was there to help and support me through it all. And so, what I decided to do was there was an opportunity for me to work as an ad hoc land administrator at a Bethesda office, for the same organization. And so it gave me one a chance to be able to get out. Now I recognize that there's some women that may not have a way out like this, right? But one of the other things that I was able to do was I had to really put my focus on gathering as much skills that I could possibly muster in that short period of time. I was only there a year and a half. Okay. When I got the ad hoc position over in Bethesda, I began to immediately build new relationships, and they really wanted me to stay there. And she became insanely jealous of this opportunity to the point where she started trying to sabotage work that I was doing at my home office, unhooking computer equipment, telling lies, following me around saying I wasn't doing work. And mind you, this is just a very small office with just 2 floors. So it's not like I'm lost in there, you know. But she really was making it very difficult. So when they had an opportunity to do a merger with another organization, that's when she found the opportunity to get me out of there, to get me laid off. But luckily for me, that I was able to take the experience that I had in the Bethesda office, whatever experience I was able to gather from that, and I quickly got another job 3 weeks later. And I ended up with the best boss that I could ever imagine. It was such a relief, but the damage is done. Mentally, physically, you are still feeling that anger, that, like, how can this one person do this to you, to the point where you feel like that you want to not be here anymore? You feel like that you are worthless. I would say my thoughts to the young woman who took her life, only being there 9 months. I can't help but think that there were other factors that she brought over with her, and that's just the straw that broke the camel's back when she got over there. I think there was some other stuff that was happening in her personal life and maybe her past career life that just kind of just compounded over time. And this was just the last thing that she just could deal with, and that was it. And and as far as the other woman, I think that that's just unfortunate that these people are being harassed out of their jobs. But some women just get tired of fighting. They just get tired of dealing with it and fighting, and they don't understand their own power. And there were times where I didn't understand my own power either. It was another instance too where I was at another position and everything was going really, really well. Okay, I became lead. I had a team. I was managing 3 offices. Everything was great. And then a whole shift happened, and the guy pulled us to the office, said, "Hey, we're going to have lunch. This is great." And he sat there and had lunch with us like as if we're a whole team, and then pulled us in one by one and talked about how he was going to demote us. In the next, this was the next day after lunch. Okay, Dr. Don or Pastor Don. So the next day he comes and tells me, well, we're going to take your boss and put him in your position, and we're going to bump you back down to a help desk. And I said, well, unfortunately, sir, I've worked too hard for this position. I won't be here long. Thank you very much. And then I got up and left. And they tried to talk me into staying. But 3 weeks later, I was out of there, and I had an IT manager position. I can tell you that being harassed is never fun. It is something that you have to pray every day that you can muster. It is something that you have to. I don't know. I mean, I can tell you, Pastor Don, I have a journal right here that I keep nearby, and I keep these. I write in there my prayers, my thoughts, my wishes, anything that will empower me to get through the day. There's not going to be a time where you're going to have a job and there's a person that's just going to be all gun, roses, and you're going to have one person or maybe more than one person on the job that's going to be the bane of your existence, no matter where you go. No matter where you go. And it can be any race, right? To have racism. And it doesn't even matter. I got one right now, the job right now. I got somebody right now. But what you do and how you respond is how you're going to manage that psychological reaction. Going home, internalizing that is something that's very dangerous, because now you're giving them the power to control how you feel. You're giving away your power. If you understand what your power is, there's no way that you can allow them to affect you that way. But some people mentally just cannot do that. They really, really feel, and they take it all in, and they don't know what to do with it. And then they just blow up. They blow up. If they have support, and I really applaud what you're trying to do, is that you're trying to put this type of situation and say, hey, you're not alone out there. There's women out there that can give you support, that can give you some advice, that can be on your side, or somebody, maybe they don't have family members, maybe they need someone outside. I think that's where I really appreciated sometimes with the career development and the business development, because it gave women a chance to deflate. And they're telling me the stuff you're talking about. This is happening to me on my job. I really want to start a business because my boss is doing this, or my coworker is doing that, or the whole environment is doing whatever. And I have to bring them back to reality. And I say, hey, listen, even when you run this business as a CEO, you're going to have somebody on the job that you hired that's going to be like that. So how are you going to handle it if you can't handle this?
Right.
And I bring them back. And I'm like, well, you have to understand how human behavior works so that you can manage expectations for yourself and for others.
Right. And that's so true. And I like how you said that a lot of times what compounds a situation is things from your past, or things that you've experienced that you may bring into that environment that may be the level of toxicity that just takes you to a point that you prefer to leave this earth than to stay and deal with it. I've struggled with some really serious bullying in the workplace. And I got to the point, I told my family, this year, I'll be 50 this year. And so this is my golden jubilee. And so I've been living my life like I was stuck at 17 and I had to answer to others. But one of the things that God has graced me with is the ability to start speaking up for myself and having conversations, building those boundaries. And I can just imagine when you made the comment about bringing things over, I've been in situations where you think you're going to something totally different than what you just came out of. And then when you learn that you're in something worse, it becomes extremely devastating. I know
Yeah.
that at the beginning part of last year, I literally had to take some time off of work because I had to put my mental health first. In that, when you're dealing with or struggling with mental illness, just like any other physical illness, if you don't take the time to nurse it, you won't be able to survive. So I took some time. And when I tell you, I came back probably to a worse situation, but I
Yeah.
was determined. But part of the challenge, right, as we age, because now I'm going through menopause, had just lost my
Yeah.
mom,
Oh,
and it's like
yeah.
you got all of these things that are playing with your emotions, and then you still have to go into the workplace. So yes, I pray that I'm able to use this platform to help women in a real and in a tangible way when they're suffering through situations, even if it's just the scream and holler, whatever. We
Yes.
can pray all day and pray all night. I'm good at that. But
You got to learn your triggers. You
yeah.
got to learn your triggers. That's the most important key to it all. If you understand what triggers you to feel a certain way, you can control how you respond to the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was heavily bullied, that's trauma. I dealt with a lot of trauma when I was growing up, and then racism, that's more trauma. I had to really understand what is the breaking point for Anne. What is the line that just cannot be crossed. And how do I put myself in a neutral situation where I can control certain things that goes on with me. Understanding, going back to knowledge is power, is understanding the role of HR in as far as a career. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, HR protects the company, but they also are mandated to protect the employee through EEOC rights.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding your EEOC laws and regulations and guidelines, you can leverage that HR so that person will never even bully you anymore. Because when the threat of them losing their job for harassment comes into play, then you looking at, they got a mandate, they got to respond, they got to handle, and you have to be able to have certain things. Documenting certain things that happen on the job is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Documenting days, times, events, people, what they said, um, is the proof between your word and their word.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
could tell you that I put stuff in my own personnel file from people doing stuff to me so that I can have evidence. I had evidence and my personnel file had evidence. And the moment that somebody coughed wrong at me, I'm not like threatening, but I am saying that if you come for me, it better be really strong, because when I come back as a rebuttal, I will have something that will be very damaging to you, because I've already done my research on how to protect myself. And I do it to protect me, not to try to be malicious or any of that stuff. And the number one, I would say the number one of my list for that specific category is don't gossip.
Mm-hmm.
Don't gossip. Don't talk about nobody. Don't tell nobody how you feel. A lot of times we're women, we are feeling, thinking, emotional people. Okay, we
Mm-hmm.
can't help it. That's what we do, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying it's bad. But in the workplace, when you have opposition, you do not need to say anything negative about anybody. You don't need to gossip about anyone. You don't need to even bring up any situations that are negative. You need to be as neutral as possible so that you are not the target.
Right.
A lot of
Right.
times you're the target because you think, oh, if I'm in with Pastor Dawn and her girls, then they're gonna leave me alone. They're gonna leave me alone. But it's actually putting you deeper into the hole, because
Right.
now you're a part of anything that be said. Oh, well, I know that Dawn and Allie was together, but maybe Ann was over there. She might know. You
Mm-hmm.
you instantly gonna get brought in no matter what. But if you're able to stay neutral by not gossiping, not going to lunch with people. You can eat lunch by yourself. You don't need to eat lunch with a whole bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter what you do, you're going to be on the wrong side of this no matter what. But those are things that you can do to protect yourself. If somebody you know that's always negative and starting stuff come to your desk, to say, hey, listen, I got a meeting in 15 minutes. Let me get back to you, okay? And you get up from your desk and walk away. Walk around the building if you have to. Walk around to the coffee machine, get some tea and come back. Or go to the restroom for 10 minutes and come back and see if they see you busy if you do that a couple times.
Right.
You know, there are
Right.
ways you can get from under that if you just stay neutral, you know. But if you trying to convince somebody that you can be trusted, or if you're trying to get in to know with somebody, it's just going to make the situation worse. I can tell you, if you come to my desk where I work, there's not a picture on my desk. There's no cat, there's no family, there's nothing. The desk is absolutely vacant. It looked like nobody sit there, because I'm not claiming that desk as my home. I come there, I do the work required, and I go home.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I stay neutral.
Yep.
And when you
My
stay neutral, people trust you better.
Yeah. I was gonna say my desk is almost the same, except I just had a little beautiful little baby 2 weeks ago, and
Oh.
she gonna be on my desk soon as I get back in there. My
Well,
my
congratulations.
Yes,
Yeah,
my
definitely
youngest
look at
girl
that.
just had a baby. Yeah, that's gonna be the other thing. But I'm just like you. I wear these positions fairly loosely. One, because I've come from being a consultant so many years, but also because I understand that in the corporate environment there is dysfunction, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
dysfunction has cost me more than I'm willing to give up. So I'm like you. I kind of stay out the fray. I'm neutral. I may be the one that people look to because I treat everyone with a level of respect and regard. But at the same time, I am my first line of defense. Just like in my home, I may have to call
Exactly.
911, but it's to help whoever, I may have to help you to call 911.
Yes,
But
exactly. You
but
have
you get
to.
to that point. You get to that point, and but it's a lot of women. It's a lot of Black women suffering. And one of the things that I like to do is to help us to understand that if God created us and He made us beautifully and wonderfully in His image, the person that we are at this very moment is great. So
That's
building
right.
from that on out, and then on the flip side of it, He created us from dirt. I was
That's right.
talking to my daughter the other day. I said, we got so many similarities to dirt. I mean, the body wants so much of what the dirt wants in order for it to thrive, such as minerals and different things. I said, He knew what He was doing.
That's
God
right.
is the owner of the boilerplate template, right?
That's
He
right. The
created it.
boilerplate. That's right. I
So
like
we
that. The
can't get too
boilerplate.
high, we can't get too low,
Yes,
but we are perfect in how He created us. So, you know,
absolutely. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. And I think that a lot of women who are going through their own struggles, I think if they just look within their own power, and look at it from a well, some people take the word positivity, but when I say look within your own power, like look at your knowledge, look at your skills, look at your abilities. The body and the mind is a wonderful thing. It can do almost anything and it is true, if you put your mind to something, you can accomplish it if you have the will. You just have to believe you have the will. In the book that I wrote called Empower Thyself, I have a chapter in there that talks about the difference between believing and belief.
Mhm.
You can believe all day that you have these skills, but you have to have the belief that it will happen.
Mhm.
That's the difference, how you will that to yourself. It's like opposites attract. People attract things based on what they will to themselves, just by default, just by nature. You just will certain things, certain people, certain avenues to you. But if you're not willing that knowledge and that skill and that power to yourself, then how are you going to break that glass ceiling when it's time? When you'll know when it's time to break the glass ceiling, you will get to the top of the ceiling. Well, hey, It's been real. It's been great. Let me go ahead and put my resume out there, and I'm gonna have another job doing something else, and you're on moving. And that's the
Yeah.
whole idea. You should have the power to decide when it's time for you to up your game. That means up your knowledge, up your money. You know, get your finances together, get you a couple of houses, get you some multiple cars. I can tell you, I was riding around here with one little car. It broke down, and I was catching the bus. I was outside in the snow, and I said, "This ain't gonna happen to me no more." Okay, I gotta have me more than one car.
Yeah.
If something happens to me and my husband, we can't afford this house, I need to have another place I can afford to go on my Social Security.
Right.
You know, but if you're not willing these things to happen, then how is it going to happen? How is it
Yes.
you can't wait for your boss to give you a raise? If you're sitting back waiting for your boss to give you a raise, you're gonna be waiting a long time. What are you doing to give yourself a raise? Is the question, you
Right.
know. And that's what I look towards. Is I'm not always about money. I'm about making sure I have what I need, in which God wants me to have the need.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can get anything I want, but is it what I need? I'm always getting what I need before I get what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I go by. So look at your own power and get what you need so that you can have what you want.
Yes. Well,
You
I'll
know,
tell you
that's
this,
the way that works.
yeah, we could talk all day and all night.
Yes,
Tell
we
you this, you
can.
gave us some good nuggets on how to transform and be transformative and put some stuff into action. I am once again, I'm so grateful that you allowed us to just have you grace our presence on
Oh,
this
well, thank you for
platform.
having me. I'm
I love it.
excited.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, tell us how we can get in touch with you. And I love that you talked about your book and also about your course. Tell us how we can get in touch with you and how we can support what you're doing and to get your knowledge right and pay for services, right? As
Oh,
we
I heard that. Well, I would say the Lord has blessed me with so many things, and all transparency. In 2024, I'm actually embarking on something a little bit different than business and career. I'm really looking to, like you, do more with women. I'm trying to figure out where is my next jump going to be. But if somebody wants to reach out to me and connect with me, they can definitely catch me on LinkedIn.com/Ann Alston. Just look for my picture. You can connect with me on Nextdoor app. I'm always looking to see what's happening in the community. You can always catch me on Facebook. And some people have connected with me on Instagram. I don't do too much posts on either Facebook or Instagram, but when I do, I do. But most of the time, you can catch me on the Nextdoor app. You can catch me on LinkedIn, or you can just email me. And you can send it to create, which is AMCREATE2, the number 2, at gmail.com. And if you just want to connect, if you just want to chat or whatever, you can just hit me up there. But I am looking to try to do something a little bit different for 2024. So that's soon to come.
Yes. Well, I know one thing for certain and two things for sure. God has great things in store for you and even better for us because if
I
he's
heard
going to
that.
get you out there and release you, that's what we need. So I am honored. It has been my great privilege to have you here on our platform. And I pray that you'll be back again. But we will
Absolutely. I'll
definitely
come back.
stay in contact for sure.
Ah, awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Pastor Don. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I had a great time, and I'll be happy to come back anytime.
Yes. Thank you.